In today's story, we dive into a gripping tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate redemption. Meet John Mitchell, a man whose world is turned upside down when he discovers his wife, Emily, in the arms of another man. This unexpected encounter sets off a chain of events that will challenge their relationships, test their resilience, and ultimately lead to profound personal growth. Join us as we explore the raw emotions, difficult choices, and transformative journeys that define this compelling narrative. Stay tuned to witness how love, forgiveness, and newfound friendships can emerge from the depths of betrayal. John Mitchell sat quietly in the corner of the Bright Spot Café, his eyes fixed on a TV screen displaying a baseball game. The atmosphere was calm, with the usual hum of conversations filling the air. John was a tall man, standing at 6 feet 4 inches and weighing around 255 pounds, but his large frame did little to comfort him now. He felt a deep unease, a gnawing suspicion that something was terribly wrong. It was a crisp October evening in 2019, and John had left work early, his mind clouded with doubts about his wife, Emily Carter. Emily had told him she would be visiting her sister, Alice, to help her through a difficult breakup. However, something in her voice had sounded off, and John couldn't shake the feeling that Emily wasn't being entirely truthful. John's suspicion led him to the Bright Spot, a quaint café about 10 miles away from his office. It was the kind of place that attracted both locals and tourists with its cozy atmosphere and excellent coffee. John had never been there before, but he had a hunch that this was the place Emily would be if she wasn't with her sister. As he scanned the room, his heart sank. At a secluded booth at the back of the café, he saw Emily. She was not alone. Beside her sat a man John didn't recognize, and they were engaged in a deep, intimate conversation. The man, although smaller in stature compared to John, exuded a confident demeanor. John's initial reaction was one of disbelief. He wanted to be wrong, to think that his eyes were deceiving him. But as he watched them laugh and lean closer to each other, it became painfully clear that this was not a simple meeting between friends. Emily's hand rested on the man's arm in a familiar way, and they occasionally exchanged fleeting kisses. Fury and heartbreak welled up inside John. He felt a rush of adrenaline, and before he could fully process his emotions, he found himself standing up and walking towards the couple. His large frame cast a shadow over their booth as he approached, and the man looked up, his smile fading. "Are you Mark Thompson?" John asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. The man nodded cautiously. "Yes, I am. Who are you?" John took a deep breath. "I'm John Mitchell, Emily's husband." Emily's face turned pale, her eyes wide with shock. "John, it's not what it looks like," she stammered. John ignored her, focusing on Mark. "Can I get you a drink?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of sarcasm. Mark shook his head. "I don't need another drink. I'm meeting my wife soon." John smirked, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "Well, you might want to hear what I have to say before she arrives." Mark's expression hardened. "What's going on here? How do you know my wife's name?" John leaned in, lowering his voice. "Because I've been with her tonight, Mark. At my place." The tension in the air was palpable. Mark's eyes flashed with anger, and he stood up abruptly, his fists clenched. "You bastard," he shouted, and before John could react, Mark's fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling to the floor. Despite his smaller size, Mark packed a powerful punch. John found himself on the ground, staring up at Mark, who loomed over him with a mix of rage and confusion. John slowly sat up, wiping a trickle of blood from the corner of his mouth. "Get up," Mark demanded. "I'm not done with you." John shook his head, remaining seated. "I'm not here to fight you, Mark. I'm here to tell you the truth." Mark hesitated, his anger giving way to a flicker of curiosity. He stepped back, allowing John to rise. They both sat down again, and John began to recount the events of the evening, how he had followed Emily to the café, and what he had seen. "I never meant for this to happen," John said quietly. "But I couldn't ignore the signs any longer." Emily, who had been silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke up. "John, please, let me explain." John held up a hand to silence her. "Save it, Emily. I've heard enough lies. Mark's face softened slightly as he listened to John's story. So, you had no idea who she was? He asked. John shook his head. None. If I had known, I would have stayed far away. The bartender, Tom, who had been watching the scene unfold, approached cautiously. Is everything all right here? He asked, his hand hovering over the phone, ready to call for help if needed. John nodded. Yeah, we're fine. Just a misunderstanding. Tom glanced at Mark, who nodded in agreement. Satisfied, Tom returned to the bar, though he kept a watchful eye on the trio. Mark sighed, leaning back in his seat. I guess we both have some things to think about. John nodded. Yeah, we do. But for now, I think we both need a drink. He motioned to Tom, who brought over 2 glasses of whiskey. They sat in silence for a moment, each lost in their thoughts. Emily finally broke the silence. John, I'm so sorry. John looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of hurt and disappointment. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Emily. But right now, I just need some time to think. Mark nodded in agreement. Me too. We'll figure this out, but not tonight. John stood up, finishing his drink in one gulp. I think it's best if we all go our separate ways for now. Mark and Emily nodded, and John turned to leave the cafe. As he walked out into the cool October night, he felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. He knew that his life would never be the same, but he was determined to face whatever came next with strength and resilience. The following weeks were a blur for John Mitchell. He moved out of the house he shared with Emily and rented a modest apartment downtown. It was a small one-bedroom place, but it suited his needs for the time being. The walls were bare, the furniture sparse, but it was his sanctuary from the chaos that his life had become. Emily tried to reach out to him several times, leaving messages and sending texts, but John ignored them all. He couldn't bear to hear her voice or read her words. The betrayal was too fresh, the wound too deep. Instead, he focused on his work, throwing himself into projects and late nights at the office. It was a way to keep his mind off the pain, a way to numb the hurt that threatened to overwhelm him. One evening, a couple of weeks after the confrontation at the Bright Spot, John received a call from Alice, Emily's sister. He hesitated before answering, unsure if he was ready to hear what she had to say. John, it's Alice, she began, her voice soft and hesitant. I've been trying to talk to you. Can we meet? John sighed. I don't know, Alice. I'm not sure what there is to say. Please, John, just give me a chance to explain. Emily is a wreck, and I think you deserve to hear the whole story. Reluctantly, John agreed to meet Alice at a small cafe near his apartment. When he arrived, Alice was already there, nursing a cup of coffee. She looked up as he entered, her eyes filled with concern. John, thank you for coming, she said as he sat down across from her. Make it quick, Alice. I'm not in the mood for a long conversation, John replied, his tone brusque. Alice took a deep breath. John, I know what Emily did was unforgivable, but you need to understand why. She's been struggling with a lot of things she never told you about. John raised an eyebrow. Like what? Like her feelings of inadequacy, her fear of losing you. She thought you were growing distant, that you didn't love her anymore. That's why she turned to someone else. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake, but it wasn't because she didn't love you. John shook his head. That doesn't excuse what she did, Alice. If she had problems, she should have talked to me, not run off with another man. Alice nodded. You're right, and she knows that now. She's been seeing a therapist, trying to work through her issues. She wants to make things right, John. John sighed, rubbing his temples. I don't know if things can ever be right again. Trust is something you can't just rebuild overnight. Alice reached across the table, placing a hand on his. Just think about it, John. Don't shut her out completely. Give her a chance to make amends. John nodded slowly. I'll think about it, Alice. But I'm not making any promises. As he left the cafe, John's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. He couldn't deny that he still had feelings for Emily, but the pain of her betrayal was still too raw. He needed time to heal, to figure out what he wanted from life. Meanwhile, Mark Thompson was dealing with his own turmoil. After the encounter at the Bright Spot, he had gone home and confronted his wife, Lisa. The argument that followed was intense and heartbreaking. Lisa tried to deny everything at first, but when faced with the evidence, she broke down and confessed. Mark couldn't believe it. He had trusted Lisa completely, and now that trust was shattered. He moved out of their house and filed for divorce, determined to start fresh. But the pain of betrayal lingered, a constant reminder of how fragile relationships could be. One night, a few weeks later, Mark found himself back at the Bright Spot. He sat at the bar, nursing a drink and staring into the distance. Tom, the bartender, approached him with a sympathetic smile. "Rough night, huh?" Tom asked, setting a fresh drink in front of Mark. Mark nodded. "Yeah, you could say that." Tom leaned against the bar. "You know, a lot of people come here to drown their sorrows. But sometimes, talking about it helps more than drinking." Mark sighed. "I just can't believe she did this to me. We were supposed to be partners, best friends. How do you come back from that?" Tom shrugged. "It's not easy, that's for sure. But you've got to take it one day at a time. Focus on yourself, on what makes you happy. Don't let her actions define your life." Mark nodded, taking a sip of his drink. "Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it." Tom patted his shoulder. "Anytime, buddy." As the weeks turned into months, both John and Mark began to rebuild their lives. John focused on his work, finding solace in the routine and structure it provided. He started going to the gym regularly, channeling his anger and frustration into physical activity. It helped him clear his mind and regain a sense of control. Mark, on the other hand, found comfort in reconnecting with old friends. He started attending a support group for people going through divorce, and there he met others who understood his pain. Sharing his story and hearing theirs helped him feel less alone. One evening, John received an unexpected call from Mark. They had exchanged numbers after the confrontation at the café, but neither had expected to use them. "Hey, John. It's Mark. I was wondering if you'd like to grab a drink sometime. I think we could both use a friend right now." John hesitated for a moment, but then he agreed. They met at a quiet bar downtown, a different place than the Bright Spot, hoping to leave the past behind. They spent the evening talking about their experiences, their feelings of betrayal, and their hopes for the future. It was strange, but comforting, to find someone who truly understood what the other was going through. As they continued to meet up, a friendship began to form. They supported each other through the tough times, and slowly, both started to heal. John even found himself laughing again, something he hadn't done in months. Emily, meanwhile, continued to attend therapy and work on her issues. She respected John's need for space but hoped that one day he would be willing to talk. She knew she had made a terrible mistake, and she was determined to do whatever it took to make amends. One day, John received a letter from Emily. It was heartfelt and sincere, detailing her struggles and her regrets. She didn't ask for forgiveness, but she wanted John to know that she was truly sorry. John read the letter several times, his emotions a mix of anger, sadness, and a glimmer of hope. He wasn't ready to forgive her, but he appreciated her honesty. It was a step in the right direction, even if the path to healing was still a long one. Mark also received a letter, but from his soon-to-be ex-wife, Lisa. Her letter was more of a plea, begging for another chance, but Mark knew that their relationship was beyond repair. He wished her well, but he was ready to move on. As the months went by, John and Mark continued to support each other. They started to see the light at the end of the tunnel, realizing that they could build new, better lives for themselves. They learned to trust again, to open their hearts to the possibility of new relationships. John's chance at new love came unexpectedly. At Mark's birthday party, he met Sarah, Mark's sister. She was kind, intelligent, and had a warmth that immediately drew John in. They started talking and quickly found that they had a lot in common. Sarah had gone through her own share of heartache, and she understood John's hesitation to jump into a new relationship. They took things slow, enjoying each other's company and building a strong foundation of trust and friendship. Mark was thrilled to see his friend and his sister growing close. He had always thought they would be a good match, and seeing them together brought him a sense of joy and satisfaction. John and Sarah's relationship blossomed over time. They supported each other through the ups and downs, and John found himself falling in love again. It was different from his relationship with Emily, but in many ways, it was better. There was an honesty and openness that he had never experienced before. In June 2021, John proposed to Sarah, and she said yes. They had a small, intimate wedding surrounded by close friends and family. It was a day filled with love and happiness, a stark contrast to the dark days John had endured after Emily's betrayal. Emily, meanwhile, had moved on with her life. She continued her therapy, focusing on becoming a better person and learning from her mistakes. She eventually found love again with someone who accepted her for who she was, flaws and all. Mark also found happiness, meeting someone through his support group who understood his past and accepted him wholeheartedly. They started a new life together, building a future based on trust and mutual respect. As the years passed, John and Sarah welcomed 3 beautiful children into their lives. They built a home filled with love and laughter, and John knew he had finally found his place in the world. Looking back, John realized that the pain and betrayal he had experienced had ultimately led him to a better place. He had learned to value honesty, to cherish the people who truly mattered, and to never take love for granted. The friendships he had built with Mark and others who had supported him through the tough times became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Together, they had all overcome their pasts and found new, fulfilling lives. And so, the story of John Mitchell, Emily Carter, Mark Thompson, and Lisa Thompson came full circle. From heartbreak and betrayal to healing and new beginnings, they all found their own paths to happiness. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. With Emily and Lisa out of their lives, John and Mark focused on rebuilding themselves. They found solace in the routines of their new lives and the camaraderie they shared. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it no longer defined them. They were determined to move forward and create better futures for themselves. John's work at the tech company kept him busy. He took on new projects and pushed himself harder than ever. His colleagues noticed the change in him. He was more driven, more focused. They respected his work ethic, and soon, he was offered a promotion to lead a new project team. It was a welcome distraction, and he threw himself into it with all his energy. Mark, on the other hand, decided to make a career change. He had always been passionate about cooking, and after his divorce, he enrolled in a culinary school. It was a bold move, but it was something he had always wanted to do. The kitchen became his sanctuary, a place where he could channel his emotions into creating something beautiful and delicious. Their friendship deepened as they supported each other through these changes. They met regularly, sharing their successes and setbacks. They became each other's confidants, a bond forged in the fires of their shared experiences. One evening, a few months after John's wedding to Sarah, he invited Mark over for dinner. It was a simple meal, but it was special because it was the first time Mark would cook for them since becoming a professional chef. Sarah welcomed Mark warmly. "It's so good to see you, Mark. John has been talking about your culinary skills non-stop." Mark smiled. "I hope I can live up to the hype." They sat down to a beautifully set table, and Mark presented his dishes with pride. The food was exquisite, and as they ate, they talked about their lives, their dreams, and their plans for the future. John raised his glass. "To new beginnings and lasting friendships," he said. Mark and Sarah clinked their glasses with his. "To new beginnings," they echoed. As the night went on, the conversation turned to deeper topics. Mark shared his fears about starting over, about whether he was truly capable of finding happiness again. John and Sarah listened, offering their support and encouragement. "You've come a long way, Mark," John said. "And you're not alone. We're here for you, no matter what." Sarah nodded. "And remember, it's okay to take things one step at a time. You don't have to have everything figured out right now." Mark smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "Thank you, both of you. I don't know what I'd do without you." Their friendship became a source of strength for all of them. They leaned on each other through the hard times and celebrated the good times together. It was a reminder that, no matter how difficult life got, they had people who cared about them and who would stand by them. Meanwhile, Sarah and John's relationship continued to flourish. They found joy in the little things: morning walks, cooking dinner together, playing with their children. Their home was filled with laughter and love, and John felt a deep sense of contentment he had never known before. One Saturday afternoon, as they were playing in the backyard with their kids, Sarah turned to John. "I've been thinking," she said. "About what?" John asked, pulling their youngest daughter onto his lap. "About how far we've come. I'm so grateful for everything we have. And I was wondering if you'd be open to the idea of fostering children." John looked at her, surprised but intrigued. "Fostering? You mean taking in kids who need a temporary home?" Sarah nodded. "Yes. I know it's a big decision, but I feel like we have so much love to give. And there are so many kids out there who need a safe, loving home, even if it's just for a little while." John thought about it for a moment. "It's a wonderful idea, Sarah. I think we could really make a difference in a child's life." They decided to move forward with the idea, and a few months later, they welcomed their first foster child, a shy 10-year-old boy named Alex. It was an adjustment for everyone, but they embraced the challenge with open hearts. Alex soon became a part of their family, his laughter and energy adding to the vibrant life they had built. Mark, inspired by John and Sarah's decision to foster, began volunteering at a local shelter, teaching cooking classes to kids. It became a passion project for him, a way to give back and connect with others. The kids loved his classes, and Mark found immense joy in seeing their faces light up as they created their own dishes. One day, as Mark was finishing up a class, a young woman approached him. She was one of the shelter volunteers, and they had worked together on a few occasions. "Hi, Mark, I'm Emily," she said, extending her hand. Mark shook her hand. "Nice to officially meet you, Emily. Thanks for all your help with the classes." Emily smiled. "I love what you're doing here. It's really inspiring." They started talking, and over time, their conversations grew longer and more personal. Emily was kind and compassionate, and Mark found himself drawn to her. They began spending more time together, and eventually, their friendship blossomed into something more. Mark was cautious at first, hesitant to open his heart again. But Emily's warmth and understanding helped him overcome his fears. She had her own past heartaches, and they found solace in each other's company. Their relationship was built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared desire to make the world a better place. As John and Sarah's family grew and Mark found love again, they all celebrated the milestones together. Birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays were filled with joy and laughter, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Years later, as John reflected on his journey, he realized how far he had come. The betrayal and pain that once seemed insurmountable had given way to a life filled with love and purpose. He had built a family, rekindled old friendships, and found new ones. He had learned to trust again and had discovered the strength to overcome his darkest days. John and Sarah's home became a place of refuge and love for many foster children over the years. They provided stability and support, helping each child heal and grow. Their own children thrived in the loving environment, learning the values of compassion and empathy. Mark and Emily continued their work at the shelter, eventually expanding the cooking classes into a full-fledged culinary program that helped countless kids develop skills and confidence. They got married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by friends and family. Mark knew that he had finally found his soulmate, someone who understood him and supported him in every way. As the years passed, John, Sarah, Mark, and Emily remained close. Their bond was unbreakable, forged through shared experiences and a deep commitment to each other's happiness. They had all found their own paths to healing and fulfillment, and they faced the future with hope and optimism. In the end, the story of John Mitchell, Emily Carter, Mark Thompson, and Lisa Thompson was not just one of betrayal and heartache. It was a story of resilience, redemption, and the enduring power of love and friendship. They had all faced their own trials, but they had emerged stronger, more compassionate, and more connected than ever before. Their journey was a testament to the human spirit's capacity for growth and transformation. No matter how difficult the past, the future always held the promise of new beginnings and endless possibilities. And in that promise, they found their true happiness. The years rolled on, and the bonds of friendship and family between John, Sarah, Mark, and Emily grew stronger. They faced life's ups and downs together, finding joy in the ordinary and extraordinary moments alike. Their journey from betrayal and heartache to love and fulfillment was an inspiration to everyone who knew them. John and Sarah's home was always filled with laughter and activity. Their children were growing up fast, and the couple took great pride in the loving and supportive environment they had created. Fostering children had become a central part of their lives, and each new child brought a unique joy and challenge to their family. One spring day, John and Sarah decided to take a weekend trip to a cabin in the mountains, a getaway to recharge and reconnect with nature. They invited Mark and Emily, who eagerly accepted the chance to spend some quality time together. As they arrived at the picturesque cabin, surrounded by tall pine trees and the gentle sounds of a nearby stream, John couldn't help but feel a deep sense of contentment. Life had brought them all to this moment, and he was grateful for the journey. The first evening at the cabin, they sat around a crackling fire, toasting marshmallows and sharing stories. The stars above were clear and bright, casting a serene glow over the scene. "I can't believe how much has changed in the past few years," John said, gazing into the fire. "There were times I didn't think we'd make it through." Sarah reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "We've all come so far. I'm so proud of us." Mark nodded in agreement. "It's been a long road, but I wouldn't trade any of it. It's made us who we are today." Emily smiled, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "And we have so much to look forward to. This is just the beginning." The next day, they decided to go for a hike, exploring the lush forest trails that surrounded the cabin. The air was fresh, and the exercise invigorated them. They laughed and talked, taking in the beauty of the natural world around them. As they reached a scenic overlook, they paused to take in the breathtaking view. The valley below stretched out in a patchwork of greens and browns, with the river winding its way through the landscape. "This is incredible," Emily said, taking a deep breath. "I feel so alive." John put his arm around Sarah, pulling her close. "It's moments like these that remind me of how lucky we are. We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger on the other side." That evening, back at the cabin, they prepared a feast. Mark took charge in the kitchen, creating a culinary masterpiece with the ingredients they had brought. The table was set with care, and they gathered around, savoring the delicious food and the warm company. As they finished dinner, Sarah stood up, holding a glass of wine. "I'd like to make a toast," she said, smiling at her friends and family. "To us. To our journey, our resilience, and our love. We've faced our darkest days and come out brighter than ever. Here's to the future and all the joy it holds." They raised their glasses, the clink of crystal ringing out in the cozy cabin. "To us," they echoed, feeling the deep connection that bound them together. The weekend passed in a blur of happiness and relaxation. They spent their days exploring, laughing, and making memories. It was a time to recharge and remember the importance of the bonds they had forged. Back in the city, life resumed its usual pace. John continued to excel at work, and his leadership on the new project team earned him accolades and respect. Sarah remained dedicated to her work with foster children, her compassion and dedication touching countless lives. Mark and Emily's culinary program at the shelter thrived, expanding to include job placement assistance and mentorship. They were making a real difference in the lives of the kids they worked with, helping them build skills and confidence. One evening, as John and Sarah were getting ready for bed, John received a call from his father. His father's voice was filled with emotion as he shared the news that his mother had passed away peacefully in her sleep. John sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, his heart aching with grief. Sarah immediately wrapped her arms around him, offering comfort and support. "We'll get through this together," she whispered. "You have all of us here for you." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of funeral arrangements and family gatherings. John's friends and family rallied around him, offering their love and support during this difficult time. At the funeral, as John stood by his father, he felt a profound sense of loss but also a deep appreciation for the people who had stood by him. Mark, Emily, and Sarah were there, their presence a source of strength. After the funeral, they gathered at John's childhood home. It was a bittersweet reunion, filled with tears and laughter as they reminisced about the past and shared stories of John's mother. "She was an amazing woman," Mark said, raising a glass in her honor. And she raised an incredible son. John smiled through his tears. She did. And I'm grateful for everything she taught me. The weeks turned into months, and life gradually returned to its normal rhythm. John's grief slowly gave way to a renewed sense of purpose. He poured his energy into his work and his family, determined to honor his mother's memory by living a life filled with love and kindness. One sunny afternoon, as John was working in his garden, he received a call from a number he didn't recognize. He answered it, and to his surprise, it was Emily Carter. "John, it's Emily," she said, her voice hesitant. "I know it's been a long time, but I wanted to reach out. I've been thinking about everything, and I wanted to apologize again for what happened." John was silent for a moment, his mind racing. "Emily, it's been years. Why now?" "I've been doing a lot of soul searching," Emily replied. "And I realized that I never truly made amends. I know I can't change the past, but I wanted to acknowledge the hurt I caused and tell you how sorry I am." John took a deep breath, feeling a mix of emotions. "Thank you, Emily. I appreciate that. We've both moved on, but it means a lot to hear you say that." They talked for a while, catching up on their lives and reflecting on the journey they had both been on. It was a cathartic conversation, bringing a sense of closure that John hadn't realized he needed. As he hung up the phone, John felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had forgiven Emily in his heart, and now, he could truly let go of the past. That evening, as he sat on the porch with Sarah, he shared the conversation with her. "I feel like a chapter of my life has finally closed," he said, holding her hand. Sarah smiled. "I'm glad, John. You deserve peace." Their life continued to blossom. John and Sarah's foster children thrived under their care, and they welcomed new kids into their home with open arms. Their biological children grew into kind and compassionate young adults, inspired by the example their parents set. Mark and Emily's culinary program expanded further, becoming a beacon of hope for many at-risk youth in the community. They also started a family of their own, welcoming a baby girl into their lives. They named her Hope, a testament to the journey they had been on and the future they looked forward to. Years later, John found himself reflecting on his life once again. He stood in his garden, watching his grandchildren play, and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The pain and betrayal that had once seemed insurmountable were now distant memories, overshadowed by the love and joy that filled his life. He walked over to Sarah, who was sitting on a bench, watching their family with a smile. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" he said, sitting down beside her. Sarah nodded, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Yes, we have, and I wouldn't change a thing." As they sat there, surrounded by the people they loved, John knew that their journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new joys, and new adventures. But with Sarah by his side, and the support of their friends and family, he felt ready to face whatever the future held. The story of John Mitchell, Sarah Thompson, Mark Thompson, and Emily Carter was one of resilience, redemption, and the enduring power of love. They had all faced their own trials, but they had emerged stronger, more compassionate, and more connected than ever before. Their journey was a testament to the human spirit's capacity for growth and transformation. No matter how difficult the past, the future always held the promise of new beginnings and endless possibilities. And in that promise, they found their true happiness. As we conclude this riveting tale of betrayal and redemption, we've seen John Mitchell's journey from heartbreak to finding love again. Alongside his friend Mark, who also faced his own trials, they both learned the true meaning of resilience and the power of new beginnings. Their paths, though marked by pain, led them to stronger relationships, deeper friendships, and a renewed sense of purpose. John and Sarah's home became a haven of love and laughter, welcoming foster children and building a family filled with warmth. Mark and Emily's culinary program touched countless lives, offering hope and skills to at-risk youth. Together, they all demonstrated that even from the darkest moments, light can emerge, guiding us toward brighter futures. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul. Until next time, remember that every end is just a new beginning waiting to unfold.